first real story. The mysterious photographer.
This happened about 2 years ago when I was living alone in a small town in northern Colorado. I rented a little 2-bedroom house near the edge of town. The neighborhood was quiet, mostly retirees and young families. Nothing exciting ever happened there. I worked night shifts at a warehouse, so my schedule was different from most people. Usually I'd get home around midnight, eat something, watch TV for a while, and go to bed around 3 a.m. One Tuesday afternoon, I noticed a man standing across the street. At first, I didn't think much of it. He was wearing a gray hoodie and sunglasses, holding what looked like a camera. I assumed he was photographing birds or something, but when I looked again a few minutes later, he was aiming the camera directly at my house, not my neighbor's house, mine. I watched him take several pictures before walking away. It felt strange, but not strange enough to call anyone. The next day, he was back. This time, I was sitting by the front window when I noticed him. Same hoodie, same camera, same spot. He stood there for almost 10 minutes taking photographs. Eventually, I walked outside. The moment he saw me, he lowered the camera and started walking away. I called out asking what he was doing. He never answered. He just kept walking until he disappeared around the corner. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Maybe he was a real estate photographer. Maybe he had the wrong address. Maybe I was overreacting. A few days passed without seeing him again. Then on Saturday morning, my neighbor knocked on my door. She asked if I had hired someone to inspect my roof. I told her no. She said she saw a man standing in my backyard looking up at the house. My stomach immediately dropped. The description matched the photographer. I checked my security camera footage. At around 6:20 that morning, the man had entered my backyard through the side gate. He spent nearly 15 minutes walking around my property. He looked into my windows, examined the doors, then left. I called the police. An officer came out and reviewed the footage. He told me there wasn't much they could do because the man hadn't attempted to enter the house. Still, he agreed it was suspicious. For the next week, nothing happened. I began relaxing again. Then one night I got home from work and found something strange. A small white envelope had been taped to my front door. There was no address, no stamp, nothing written on it. Inside was a single photograph. It was a picture of my house. The photo had clearly been taken from the street. On the back, written in black marker, were 3 words: "Nice place, quiet." I felt sick. I called the police again. This time they took the photo as evidence. The officer told me to stay alert and report any further contact. The following Friday, I woke up around noon. My bedroom faces the backyard. As I sat up, I noticed movement outside. Someone was standing beside my fence, watching the house. I immediately dropped below the window, then slowly peeked again. It was him, the photographer. Only now he wasn't holding a camera, he was holding binoculars. I grabbed my phone and called 911. By the time officers arrived, he was gone. The police searched the area but couldn't find him. That evening, I stayed at my brother's apartment. Before leaving, I turned on every camera around the property. Around 2 a.m., my phone started buzzing, motion alerts, one after another. I opened the camera app. The photographer was in my backyard. He wasn't hiding anymore. He walked slowly around the house, trying windows, testing doors, looking directly into cameras. Then he approached the back door. For nearly 5 minutes, he examined the lock. Suddenly, headlights appeared. A patrol car turned onto the street. The man immediately ran. Officers chased him but lost him in a wooded area behind the neighborhood. The next morning, police asked if I could come to the station. They had identified the suspect. When they showed me his photograph, I recognized him instantly. What they told me next was even worse. The man had been arrested years earlier for multiple home invasions. His method was unusual. He would spend weeks documenting houses, taking photographs, recording schedules, learning when people left for work, learning when they returned. Then he'd break in when he was confident nobody was home. The officers believed he had been preparing to target my house. Apparently, I wasn't his only victim. Several homeowners in nearby towns had reported seeing the same man taking pictures of their properties. 2 months later, he was arrested again. Police found hundreds of photographs inside his vehicle, entire neighborhoods, driveways, windows, backyards. One folder contained over 50 photos of my house alone. I moved shortly after that. Even now, whenever I notice someone lingering outside my home for too long, I pay attention. Because before this happened, I never imagined something as simple as a person taking pictures could be the beginning of something much worse.
Second story. Real experience in North Dakota's dark trail.
I live near the Black Hills in South Dakota, only a few miles from Black Elk Peak. I've spent years hiking those trails and camping in the surrounding forest. Most weekends, you'll find me somewhere out there. The night this happened, I wasn't hiking for exercise. Earlier that day, I'd found out that my grandfather had passed away. We were close, and the news hit me harder than I expected. By sunset, I couldn't stand being inside my apartment anymore. I grabbed my backpack, a flashlight, and drove to a trailhead I'd visited dozens of times before. It was early October. The air was cold and a thin mist hung between the trees. I started hiking around 8:30 p.m. My plan was simple: walk for an hour, clear my head, go home. At first, everything felt normal. The forest was quiet except for the wind moving through the pines. I followed the trail using a small headlamp. About 40 minutes in, I noticed something strange, a smell, fresh bread. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it genuinely smelled like someone had just opened an oven. Warm bread, butter, maybe cinnamon. It lasted only a few seconds before disappearing. I stopped walking and looked around. There were no campsites nearby, no cabins, nothing. The scent vanished so completely that I started wondering if I'd imagined it. A few minutes later, another smell appeared. This one was different. Old cigarette smoke, strong and stale, like it was clinging to someone's clothes. That smell lingered for almost a minute before fading away too. Now I was paying attention. The scent seemed to appear from nowhere and disappear just as quickly. As I continued up the trail, I noticed something else. A light, far ahead. At first I assumed it was another hiker, but the light wasn't moving normally. It would appear for 2 or 3 seconds, disappear, then reappear somewhere else. Almost like someone was covering and uncovering a lantern. The light was orange, not white like a flashlight. Orange, like a flame. I kept walking. The light stayed ahead of me the entire time, never getting closer, never getting farther away, just staying there, watching. After about 20 minutes of this, I reached an old fire lookout foundation. The tower itself had been removed decades ago. Only the stone base remained. As soon as I stepped into the clearing, I froze. There was a lantern sitting in the middle of the foundation, an actual oil lantern. Its flame was burning. Someone had lit it recently. I looked around. Nothing. No tents, no backpacks, no people. Just the lantern. My stomach immediately tightened. The nearest road was miles away. Who would leave a lit lantern here in the middle of the night? I took a step closer. That's when I noticed something beside it, a photograph. The picture was old and weathered, black and white. At first I couldn't tell what it showed. Then I realized it was the very clearing where I was standing. The same stone foundation, the same trees. But there were people in the photo, 5 men standing around a lantern, all staring directly at the camera. A cold chill ran through me. Something about the picture felt wrong. I couldn't explain it. Then I heard a whistle, one long note, somewhere in the darkness. I immediately turned. The sound had come from the trees. I swept my flashlight through the forest. Nothing. A few seconds later, the whistle sounded again, this time from behind me. I spun around. Nothing, just darkness. I suddenly became aware of how isolated I was. No cell signal, no other hikers. Nobody would hear me if I screamed. I decided it was time to leave. I turned around and started back down the trail. The lantern remained burning behind me. For several minutes, everything was quiet. Then I heard footsteps. 1, 2. 2, 3, not mine, someone else's. I stopped. The footsteps stopped too. My heart immediately started racing. I listened carefully. Silence. I started walking again. 3 seconds later, crunch, crunch, crunch. The footsteps returned, matching my pace perfectly. I turned around. Nothing. The beam of my flashlight disappeared into endless trees. The footsteps stopped. I began walking faster. The footsteps matched me. Faster, closer, still invisible. At this point, I knew someone was following me. There was no other explanation. I grabbed the bear spray from my backpack and kept moving. The trail curved around a rocky hillside. As I rounded the bend, I saw the orange light again. My blood went cold. The lantern, it was ahead of me. Somehow, that was impossible. I'd left it nearly a mile behind. Yet there it was, floating between the trees, the same orange glow. I stopped dead. The light vanished. The forest became silent. Then I heard laughter, very faint, several voices, like a group of people whispering and laughing somewhere in the dark. The sound surrounded me, left, right, behind, every direction. I couldn't tell where it was coming from. At that moment, panic took over. I turned and started jogging down the trail. The laughter continued, then came footsteps, lots of them. Not one person, several. Running. The sounds echoed through the trees behind me. Branches snapped, leaves rustled. Something was moving fast, very fast. I ran harder. My flashlight bounced wildly. The trail became a blur. I didn't dare look back. The sounds were getting closer, close enough that I could hear breathing, heavy breathing, right behind me. I was convinced that if I turned around, I'd see someone reaching for me. Then suddenly, everything stopped. The footsteps, the laughter, the breathing, gone, just gone. I slowed down and listened. Nothing. The forest was completely silent, not even the wind. I didn't stop running. I sprinted the remaining distance to the parking lot. When I finally reached my truck, I nearly dropped my keys trying to unlock the door. I jumped inside and locked every door. Then I looked toward the trailhead. At first, I didn't see anything. Then, deep between the trees, I spotted a small orange light, the lantern, standing perfectly still, watching. I drove away immediately. The next morning, curiosity got the better of me. I returned with 2 friends. In daylight, everything looked normal. No lantern, no photograph, no footprints besides my own. Nothing. We even searched the old Lookout Foundation. There was no sign that anyone had been there. Months later, I visited the local historical society while researching old Black Hills stories. One photograph hanging on the wall made my stomach drop. It was the same photograph I'd seen beside the lantern, the same 5 men, the same clearing. The caption explained that the men were forest workers who disappeared during a snowstorm in 1932. None of them were ever found. According to local legend, hikers occasionally report seeing an orange lantern moving through the woods at night. Most people dismiss it as a ghost story. Maybe they're right. Maybe there was a perfectly logical explanation for everything that happened. But I know one thing. I never hike Black Elk Ridge after dark anymore. And whenever I smell fresh bread in the middle of the forest, I turn around and leave immediately.